emotions aren't really my thing, but I cried that first week that I went there, just because all the stuff I was going through with my dad and the stuff that he was saying about a dad, and I mean, it really was eye opening for me. And
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
We have Cameron Rossin on the podcast today. He's here to discuss youth and spiritual growth. Cameron, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here.
So, you were raised in a church environment.
Mhm.
You are a product of a divorced family.
So,
Tell us a little bit about how that played out in your life
Mhm.
at that age.
Mhm. So my parents, I don't remember much from all the details, but they were rough. Um,
How old were you?
I was 4.
You were 4 when they went through a
Mhm.
divorce.
Yes, sir.
So you're fairly young.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Do you remember much about that?
The only thing I really remember was my mom picked me up from daycare, and when we pulled up in the driveway, I remember my dad standing there on the driveway and asked my mom what she was doing there, and my mom was like, "This is our house." And anyway, that was essentially when my dad was like, "No, we're not doing this anymore. We're moving out," stuff like that. And I remember, packing all my toys and stuff, or helping my mom at least. And me and my mom got a apartment in Bixby, and my dad moved into a apartment in Jinx, and I'd go back and forth every 2 days.
Wow. A little unsettling
A little bit, yeah.
at 4 years old.
Yes, sir.
When my parents went through a divorce, and I'll tell people, I went through a divorce when I was 14.
Mhm.
When my parents divorced, I was 14, and we had a upper middle income
Mhm.
family, and that all changed. That all changed. It
Yep.
changed from having a quote regular life
Mhm.
to living in almost poverty
Mhm.
overnight. When you were 4, you went from a house to an apartment.
Mhm.
What happened after that? Were you in church or?
No, well, occasionally. I remember the first church I actually really remember going to was the Assembly.
Yeah, over in Broken Arrow.
Yes, sir. Mhm. And I'd go with my family. I'd go with my mom and then her sisters and my grandma. And I mean, probably twice a month. It wasn't like a routine thing. Um, but we did that for, I think we lived in that apartment for maybe a year or two. And when I was, no, it was about a year. So when I was 7, we moved uh, to Oklahoma City. My mom.
Well, another big move.
Yep. So I moved 2 hours away. I was in Oklahoma City. We were still doing split visitation. So I was enrolled at Oklahoma City schools, and then every other weekend I'd go see my dad. And anyway, we did that for 5 years, maybe a little bit more. I think it was probably 6.5. And it got to be exhausting not too long after we had moved, just because all the driving and stuff was not too fun.
Yeah.
And about a year after we had moved to Oklahoma City, my parents had my younger brother, and we had moved. It was my younger brother, and then half a year later, 6 months later, we moved to another house, and over in Mustang, just south of Oklahoma City, and that's where I really started feeling pivotal growth in terms of uh, friendships, and we started going to church more routinely. And my mom had my youngest brother around that time as well, and I think that was about when I was 11 years old. I had met friends that I still have to this day. We actually just got admitted to college together. We're going to be dorm mates, which is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So,
That sounds like a blast.
yeah, for sure.
So when did you guys move back to the Tulsa area?
It was during COVID, so right before lockdown. My stepdad was working in a oil field, and the company had filed for bankruptcy, and his position got laid off.
During COVID?
Yes, sir. Like right at the start of it. I think
Yeah.
this was. I want to say it was probably April or May. Um,
Well, that's a
yeah.
fast downturn.
Mhm.
The oil was horrible in
Absolutely.
March of 2020.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Like one night it went negative money. It cost you to get rid of it. Nobody sold it and
Yep.
it recovered, but
Yep.
still, that was a horrible place for oil and gas.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
you guys, or excuse me, he had worked for them on the
Mhm.
oil, on the pipelines, you say?
He was a. I don't know his official. I think he was a project manager.
Okay.
So he was designing rigs, and he was kind of the guy that would sign off on certain parts and stuff like that to get those rigs out there and working and stuff. Um, I got to go up there to his office a few times. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was seventh grade. March rolled around, and they gave us a week off of school, and then I mean halfway through the week they announced that the school year was over, and that they were going
Isn't
into
that
official
crazy?
lockdown. Mm-hmm.
Thinking back on what we all went through at that time.
Yeah.
So you guys moved to Tulsa during the COVID lockdowns.
Yeah. We moved during the summer, right before school started up again. Like it was probably really early August, late July.
Okay.
And the land that we moved on was family inherited land. My stepdad's father, my grandpa, owned that land and handed it down to him. And so we put a double wide trailer out there, had a shop built for all of our stuff, and with the expectations that we were going to build a house. But I mean, around early 2021, the housing market just crashed. Everything was so expensive. And I mean, lumber was horribly expensive, brick was horribly expensive. So we kind of held off on that. And we're just now starting to get into the building phases again 4 years later.
Nice.
So
Let's pull back to a little bit after you moved here to Tulsa and what your day-to-day life was looking like at that time.
Mhm.
We'll get to the point where God means more to you now than he did.
Yeah.
But let's get back to where you guys had moved back to Tulsa. You
Mhm.
were on that 40 acres you told me earlier.
Yes, sir.
Double wide, nice shop.
Yeah.
Now you guys are building a house, or excuse me, getting the drawings to build the house. So what happened between the time you guys moved back and now?
So in terms of, faith and actually growing with God.
Yeah. I mean, just your day-to-day life is what brings
Yeah.
us to faith, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
spiritual growth and
So
the need for it.
yeah, my day to day, I mean, when I first was in eighth grade at Preston, I'd get up, go to school. I played baseball around this time. I'd played baseball for probably 6 years at the time. Before then, I played all throughout my years in Oklahoma City. And
Yeah, little league stuff.
yeah, little league, then moved into coach pitch and actual, fast pitch. And it was really fun. I enjoyed baseball and I still do. But once I made that move to Preston's such a smaller school. They don't have as much funding as Mustang did for sure.
Is Preston like a local private school or?
It's a public school. It's a 2A school.
Okay.
So I'm graduating this year with probably 50 kids.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah.
It's a small enough town that I don't know where it is.
Yeah. It's probably 10 minutes north of Okmulgee, right off of 75.
Oh, wow. That's where
So-
you live now.
I live actually 30 minutes west of Okmulgee, 20
Okay.
minutes west of Okmulgee. So
Okay.
I'm 30-minute drive to school every day.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
But yeah, baseball there wasn't exactly the greatest, and I mean, I don't want to blame it on anybody in particular in terms of like coaching and other students and stuff like that. But I ended up ultimately quitting when I got to high school, just toxicity and drama and stuff like that, and that really hurt because I really liked being active. And Preston literally only has basketball and baseball, and I was a huge fan of basketball. I played it a little bit during the off season in eighth grade.
I guess
So-
football takes a lot more people. You have 11 on each side.
Yes, sir.
Some people
Yep.
go to both sides of the ball, but there weren't enough people in Preston to have a football team.
Yep. And I remember me and a couple of my good buddies were really pushing our superintendent to maybe starting a football team. We had the land for it right out past the high school. There's this huge plot of land that we owned. And I mean, yard paint, couple of cheap metal bleachers and a scoreboard and some uniforms. And we were like, we can get out there and do it. But just never got approved. We never got the funding for it. We did fundraisers for it and stuff, and it just never worked out. Which now that I'm looking back on it, it might have been a blessing in disguise, because who knows what have happened. But, and I say that because, you know, sophomore year, I had ended up moving back in with my dad, and at this time he was living near Broken Arrow. So I was wanting to go to Coweta because we lived kind of in the middle of both schools. And Coweta is a much smaller school, but they still had football. And that's kind of why I wanted to move over there. And just because I wanted to still be active. I've always wanted to be, you know, a wide receiver. I've always thought that I was fast and I had good hands.
Were you fast, or you just thought you were fast?
I was fast.
So what was your 40?
My 40, like as a sophomore, I think was like a 4.6.
That is
like
fast.
That. So
that is fast for sophomore.
But anyway, wanted to go to Coweta, moved over there with the hopes of going to Coweta. And I remember asking multiple times, I was like, we're in Coweta School District, right? We can go either way, but we're in Coweta, right? And he was like, yes. So get over there. We, you know, triple check, and they had just updated their school districts, and they knocked our neighborhood off of that district. So I was in Broken Arrows. So I was going to end up going from a 2A school to a 6A school.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the major team.
Yes.
Strong players, strong coaching.
For sure. My
serious organization that's focused on getting something done.
Oh yeah.
On a state
100%,
level.
100%. They like
this wasn't playtime anymore.
Yeah. I mean, these are 160 kids that were in this team, and every single one of them were extremely committed. They devoted their entire life to this sport. And I mean, all of them had been playing since, you know, pee-wee age, when they were not even tackling yet. So I ended up going to Broken Arrow. Try to get used to the feel for football, because this was still summertime, right before sophomore year. So I was going and working out with them, getting practices in, getting my gear and stuff like that, trying to get a feel for, you know, their everyday schedule and stuff. And summer practices weren't bad at all. I mean, it was 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I think, and then I had the rest of the day to myself. So it was pretty fun. And I mean, my dad had gotten married to my stepmom, and she had a couple of kids. And my stepbrother over there, me and him have a really strong bond. And he played football. He's still playing football. So me and him, we'd go out in the front yard after practices, and he'd throw the ball. He's a quarterback for the Broken Arrow. He's in junior high.
Oh wow!
So he's their starting quarterback.
He's in junior high right now.
Yeah, he's 8th grade.
Okay.
So
we'll have to keep an eye out for him. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Caden Kimbrough.
All right.
Yes, sir. But he had a good arm. So me and him would practice. We'd run routes and stuff, and our neighbor's kid would start coming out there, because we'd use both yards. Anyway, so he'd start coming out there, and he played football for a little bit. He was either receiver or corner. So I was like, well, we can just use quarterback. You know, I'll be the receiver and then a corner. So
yeah. Well, you can switch sides, right?
Yeah. And anyway, you know, school rolled around, and then things shifted real quick. It was, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was getting up and working out with him for 3 hours, and then go to school until 2 o'clock, I think. And then I'd go from 3 to 9 and work out, have like, I think it was a 3-hour workout cardio type. And then it was 3 hours either on the field practicing, or it was, you know, in our indoor facility practicing, but constantly doing something 6 days a week. Even we had Saturdays off, and then Sunday we'd get back out there at noon. And I mean, that kind of cuts into my church time. So I never really thought, you know, that I could actually get into my faith and stuff. But I don't know, it just wasn't kind of clicking for me. Everything was just flowing towards football, and I wasn't really having it. And,
yeah. You didn't want it to be your life. You wanted it to be fun.
Exactly. I wanted to be able to live my teenage years, driving around, hanging out with friends, and, you know, going and doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And football wasn't really allowing me to do that. And October, I think, rolled around of 2022. I wanted to quit. My dad wouldn't let me, which is understandable.
Mid-season, quit mid-season.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not a good idea to help your child continue through life in goal setting and achieving those goals.
Right.
Why did you think that was not good for you?
So quitting I mean, it teaches discipline. It
Yeah,
teaches,
not quitting,
perseverance. Not quitting teaches,
perseverance.
exactly. And
But why did you think it was right for you to make that move and not go all the way through with
mm,
this?
I felt that it was a pivotal moment in terms of living my life and achieving my career goals, because football was never a career goal for me. I never wanted to make it to the pros, and I mean the odds of making it to the pros are slim.
To
So
none,
exactly,
slim to
exactly.
none.
So,
Because you guys had 160 people on
hmm
your team in
hmm
little old Broken Arrow, nowhere as far as the country is
right,
concerned.
exactly.
Basically, a sub city of Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Yep,
had 160 people on the team that were pretty serious about doing what they were doing, or they wouldn't have done it as much. Then you take a handful of those that go to the college level, D1, maybe if they're lucky,
yep,
and then maybe one of every decade
mm,
gets to go to pros out of that?
yeah,
Slim to none.
exactly.
So you didn't think that was your career. That's not how you wanted to invest all your time in high school. You wanted to do other things. What are
Exactly.
those other things that you wanted to do?
At the time, my dream was, get a 4-year degree in college, and I wanted to originally be a computer programmer, like a software developer. And that was my dream for a while. I wanted to know the ins and outs of computers. I kind of felt like a nerd, think like telling other people that, but that's just my passion.
No,
And
man, everybody fits wherever they fit.
right. And the longer that I thought about it, the more that my career had switched just to architecture, just because of um, being able to. It's kind of like a playground, honestly. You just get to design your own house. You get to design your own floor plans. People can, pick and choose, and then get in contact with them, and you're able to, mess around with it in whatever way they're wanting it. And anyway, the more that I thought about it, the more I realized that that was probably the better choice for me.
Okay.
And
And how old were you when you decided that you wanted to go into architecture?
I think I was 16,
Okay.
so just a couple of years ago. And but moved back in with my mom shortly after I ended up ultimately
Because your
quitting.
dad didn't agree with you quitting,
Yes,
and
sir.
he was like, if you're going to quit, you might not be fitting in this family.
It was more along the lines of, if you're I don't even think he didn't want to quit at all. It was not a thought in his mind. It wasn't like, if you're gonna quit, this is gonna happen. It was just, you're not quitting.
Yeah.
And
But
that
you did. So then,
exactly. So on top of all the stress and stuff, I did quit, and I ended up moving back in with my mom. And I do kind of regret the way I went about it. I did we were doing the split visitation thing. So I was over at my dad's more, and I'd go to my mom's every other weekend. I went over there. And before I went over there, I had told my dad, I was like, I think I'm gonna stay over here. And anyway, he was like, "This is your choice." He was like, "You make this choice. I'm not gonna fight. I'm done fighting." So moved back over there. Me and dad lost contact for a few months, which is understandable. He was hurt, and I felt guilty. And anyway,
yeah, divorce sucks, man.
for sure. And anyway, I went down this path of, I would almost call it depression, of just feeling lost and not feeling like I had anything going for me. I quit sports, didn't have a car, didn't have a license. Was just now getting back into my school routine of just, you know, going to school, getting picked up, coming home, and that was it. I didn't have a job, and I don't know, I just kind of felt lost.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend at the time, and me and her, started doing things that probably shouldn't have done. Now that I'm thinking about it, and anyway, that's kind of when it clicked for me. Was like, the longer our relationship went on, the more that I was like feeling almost like another voice telling me, like, this isn't you. You need to lock back in, if you will. But
And this
just
was a voice inside yourself.
correct. Like, I felt it more than just in my head. And I mean, looking back, it really did feel like the voice of God. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I need to get a hold of myself. Like, this, I'm going down the wrong path. And if I'm gonna have a successful career, I can't be doing what I'm doing. So I broke up with my girlfriend. Uh, I went single for a little while. I fully devoted my life to God. I started reading the Bible more than just religiously. It was to seek a relationship. I was reading the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, just learning about Jesus and his personality and his life, and how he dealt with certain situations. And I kind of put that in my life, or tried to reciprocate at least. And it was easier. It felt more freeing, and things started coming into my life. Just the more that I started seeking him, it says, I can't remember the verse, but seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will fall under it. And that's really what happened. I met a couple of people that I would still consider friends, even though, one of them just moved to Georgia not too long ago, and the other one is doing his own thing with basketball. And
Sports take a lot of time.
for sure, it's a lot of commitment. And then I met my now girlfriend, and we got to talking a lot. The four of us went and hung out a lot, and it felt nice. I'd gotten my permit, so I was able to drive us around. And anyway, me and my now girlfriend, we got to be really good friends, and she invited me out to
Friends with a girl?
Yes, sir.
Come on now. Girls are for kissing on, not to be friends, right?
No, no.
Jokingly said. Jokingly said. 34 years of marriage for
No.
me,
Nice.
and my wife and I are becoming more friends all the
No.
time.
It's good to be friends with your partner. Just
It's imperative.
no. If you see a relationship as a relationship, it's going to turn into a job, and it's not going to turn into having fun with somebody you can really rely on.
Right.
So
So you're getting into a more intimate relationship
Mhm.
with your girlfriend and
Mhm.
being friends and going doing things.
Yep.
And then
she invited me. Her and her family invited me to go to the Outer Banks with her for about a week and a half, I think.
what is that?
It's in North Carolina. It's on the coast. It's the beach that we were on was a 4x4 beach, so it was only 4x4 cars were allowed to get in there. You drove down a mile and a half of sand on the beach, and it was super cool to get to our beach house. And
So beach house
Mhm.
accessible only by 4-wheel drive.
Yep.
That's cool.
So it was almost like a private area of the beach, because you see Clearwater Beach, you see all these other big popular beaches that are just filled with people, and it's almost not enjoyable for me, at least. I enjoyed the sand and the throwing the frisbee around and stuff like that more than I enjoy the water. So I was really excited when we got out there, and there's not a single person on a good 100 yards of.
So you guys
beach.
rented a place there?
Yeah, we rented a pretty decent sized beach house for about a week or so, and had that whole area to ourselves, and it was super nice. Um, but leading up to it, we had a couple of issues with just actually trying to get both my parents on board with me going without.
Allowing you to do that?
Right, because it
Giving
was
you
just
permission
me.
to go?
Correct. And my mom and my stepdad were hesitant. They talked about it, but eventually they said yes. My dad was completely not on board with it. He didn't trust it. He didn't know her family.
Sure.
So
So that says
Mhm.
several times during this conversation, my dad loves me. He cares about me. And he wants to make sure that he has some guidance
Mhm.
for my life.
Right.
And he wants to help you succeed.
Right. Right.
If you agree with him or not on every detail, that's a
Exactly.
different story.
Right. He had the best intentions for me. But I feel like the reason I was even able to go, I feel, was completely by God, because my dad did not want me going even after I went. Excuse me. And anyway, it was absolutely amazing time. Me and her eventually we got together on the beach, and we, I feel like we grew closer, and up until just a couple weeks ago when me and her went to Dallas, just the two of us for the first time, and that was probably the closest we've gotten. And it was just a great time. I felt really in touch with God. I felt so free. I felt so able to do what I wanted to do and not feel, guilty for it being a sinful thing or a worldly thing, because that wasn't what was on my mind.
And that's not what y'all did.
Exactly.
That's kind of strange for people that are seniors in high school, man.
Yes, sir. It's, I mean, it's hard to steer away from temptation. Everybody deals with stuff like that. but it really takes more than just fighting it off. I mean, it says in the Bible, temptation is the one thing that you can't fight off. You have to flee from it. You have to flee and run to God, get back in His Word, pray, and give it to Him. Um, and I mean, I'm still working on that, but
All, I think most, if not all, people are still working on that.
absolutely, yep. Uh, yeah.
So you guys go to the Outer Banks. You had a good
Mhm.
time.
Yep.
Then you get to Dallas, you and your girlfriend, and then you guys plugged into a church.
So Dallas was here recently, but the Outer Banks was almost 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So that was a little bit of a time period, but
Okay.
right after we got back from North Carolina is when she showed me the church that they've been going to for a few months prior to this, and it was extremely welcoming. I mean, there's a church out in New where we live, and that's the only thing that's out there. It's a very small church. Didn't really feel that welcoming. Just felt like just like a gathering of people. You learn about the word a little bit, you leave. That's about it. Everybody knows everybody already. I mean, there's probably 30 people there or less. And New Heart Church felt way more welcoming. It was obviously bigger than that, but it's not like what you see with like
Some of
these.
the mega churches in town.
Exactly, yes.
We
Like
won't name any
transformation.
names. No, I mean, that's cool. Whatever. They have their thing. A lot of those churches actually have small groups because they are so big. But
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't for you.
For sure. And even going back to when I was 6, like my mom at the assembly was a huge church. I didn't even want to go to like my kids group, and I wanted to go to like the actual I can't think of the word for it, but the actual sermon with the pastor and everybody there. I didn't want to go with the kids stuff. And anyway, so New Heart, first week that I went there was Father's Day, and I'd already had some issues with my dad, and we hadn't been in contact for a few months. So we get there, everybody's welcoming me as I walk in. People are coming up to me asking my name, just my first time here. I'd actually gotten a few people's numbers that first time being there. And
Connect with them.
Yep. And
Building a relationship with them somewhat.
yes, sir. A couple of guys I'm really good friends with now.
And how long ago was that?
This was almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
So good relationships, really strong connecting towards people. And anyway, the service, the pastor was amazing. I mean, I mean, emotions aren't really my thing, but I cried that first week that I went there, just because all the stuff I was going through with my dad and the stuff that he was saying about a dad. And I mean, it really was eye opening for me, and that's what drew me back the next week, and then the week after, and the week after. And I mean, I really felt, I still feel super planted in that church. And I mean, people are still welcoming. People are still coming up to me and asking my name even after 2 years. New people that are coming into the church. And so it's good to have a strong foundation in a church, especially one like that, to be
Yeah.
able to build your faith a little bit better and learn better.
Yeah. So foundation, you mean fellowship?
Foundation
And
in just your life in general. I mean, going back to your everyday life, like you go to church on Sunday, you get all these feelings, you feel super strong towards God. And then on Monday, you feel like it's just your normal life and you feel like you just do whatever. But
what is normal life?
just going back to not having that on your mind,
Yeah,
going
I'm
to work,
picking on
going to
you
school.
because I think that our normal life can be that.
Absolutely.
Every moment of our
Absolutely.
life,
Yeah.
of God being real in our life
Mhm.
and being fulfilled with His presence
Mhm.
so that we can have Him shine through us so that others can see that and maybe want that.
For sure. I find myself going to that church on Sundays and chasing the feeling that I had there on Mondays. Just because the feeling that you get there is so amazing and it's so freeing. You feel like a weight is lifted off your shoulders every time you walk in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you walk out, you feel like this is just amazing.
Refreshed.
Yeah, absolutely. You feel like a new person every time.
Yeah.
And you want that feeling again. So, Sunday night, you get in your word. Monday morning, you get in your word, you pray, and you wake up and you're like, this is nice. Like, I feel good. I still feel like this is Sunday. And you go on with your life and you have that, always smiling, always, happy go lucky guy.
How long did it take you to get from going to church on Sunday to the point that you wanted that feeling on a regular basis and you started being proactive with that? Was it
Mhm.
immediate?
It was within the first couple of weeks. I mean, the first week that I was there was getting a feel for the church. I feel like that's my expectation when I walked in was like, I don't know what this is about. Let's see what it's, let's see what
Yeah,
it
give it a
is.
try.
Right. Second week there was a lot more connecting. I was able to, talk to more people, and then I got invited to youth group on Wednesday. Went to youth group. I'm a pretty competitive guy, and I like telling this story. But my girlfriend and me they have like the little game section before your actual youth sermon. Anyway, so they split us up into two teams, and me and my girlfriend were on different teams. And
Did you put it on her? Did you?
I was.
Did you dominate?
I was shy when I walked in, but my competitive side kicked in really
Oh
quick.
yeah, put the
And
helmets on. Let's play some
exactly,
football kind of thing, right?
exactly. And my only goal was to beat her that week because me and her are super competitive against each other. And anyway, apparently it caught a lot of people's eye the way that I clicked immediately, and
Light switch, baby.
absolutely. So started going every Wednesday, started going every Sunday, and it got, I don't want to say repetitive, but it got like part of my routine was making room for church and making room for that youth group. Because I mean, I got a job, I got my own car now. I took off every Sunday and every Wednesday. I sacrificed hours at work, even though they weren't dishing out a lot, um, to be able to make those times. And I feel like the only reason I was able to make that drive, because Newhart for me is an hour every that was twice a week back then, and I had a car that would guzzle gas like nothing. And anyway, I felt like it was, I mean, fully by God that I was even able to make it there and back, and still have money left over for whatever else, and for gas and for food and
Yeah. You know
everything else I
what I
wanted to do.
found about finances is when you're living in the world and you're not living for God, that you waste 80% of your money
Yep,
on stuff that you don't want to fulfill that void
exactly.
that he only belongs in. And then when you live for God and you're donating to the church and other people's lives, then you maybe give 15 or 20% of your money away. That gives you a net boost in income
For
by
sure.
itself.
Yeah.
And you feel better because God's filling your heart instead of these things that you're trying to buy,
Yep.
that you're wasting your money on.
Yep. And that goes back to tithing too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
tithing in the church, the goal for tithing is showing God that you're giving literally everything to him,
Yeah.
including part of your income. And for that reason, that's why you're able to prosper the way that you do, is because he gives back tenfold.
Yeah.
So,
No doubt.
Mhm.
And even if we don't believe in the Bible, even if people that's viewing this today don't believe in the Bible, try him in this. Try giving a portion, the first portion of what you receive to others. Focus on what you know your truth is and see if he won't make himself real to you.
Absolutely. My church always says, give us a year. Give us a year to, find your connect groups, find your passions, find yourself planted in this church.
How patient do you have to be to give a year of your life at this time of
It
your life?
it takes a lot.
Because something about time management and time experience is that I've realized is when a 1 year old experiences 1 year, that year is 100% of their lifespan. You being almost 20 years old, that's 5% of your lifespan. 50 years old, that's 2%
Yeah.
of my lifespan. So, that being said, it's amazing how fast time goes faster as you age because of perspective.
Exactly.
That's why you came today, is because we wanted to see your perspective, your perspective of how you came from a broken home, how you are living life intentionally, how God has changed your life and is changing your life so that you can take those next steps. And we wanted to encourage people to have meaningful everyday conversations with themselves and with others about how God can change your life and make your future better than you can imagine. Thanks for coming today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?